The legend of God written in the light of the sun. In the mists of time, when the world was still the battlefield of darkness and light, the heavens were churning with might. Zeus, the greatest of Olympus, had fallen in forbidden love with Leto, the noble daughter of the Titans. The children to be born from this union would leave a mark not only among the gods, but also on the fate of the whole world. But this birth would not be easy. Hera, Zeus' jealous wife, had a deadly anger against Leto. She refused to let her take refuge anywhere on earth, not even to give birth. The lands rejected Leto, the cities closed their doors, the woman goddess migrated, was banished and left alone between the sky and the earth. And finally, a miracle happened. Delos, a rootless, unstable island, floating in the desolate waters of the Aegean, took pity on Leto. The island allowed Leto to give birth and took root in its soil for the first time. After 9 days and 9 nights of labor, first Artemis and then Apollo, her light brother, were born. With the birth of Apollo, darkness retreated in the sky. The light dazzled. Apollo, born with a glow that even the gods turned their heads, took the first step of the destiny destined for him by fate. He walked the earth as the god of light, music, prophecy, and mighty bows. Apollo was still a child, but it did not take long for him to prove his godhood. Python, the giant serpent that had tried to prevent his mother Leto from giving birth, still ruled the caves of Delphi. The creature that attacked Leto was a curse of Gaia, one of the children of darkness, and Apollo set out to avenge his mother. He took the golden bow in his hand and fed his arrows with the warmth of the sun. As the young god descended into the deep cavern of Delphi, Python's ominous hiss cracked the sky. But Apollo was not afraid. He shot arrow after arrow, and each one struck its mark like lightning. As Python's scream shook the earth, Apollo struck down his enemy. Now Delphi was his sanctuary. He built a temple there, and, with the sacred Pythian priestess, began to see the future. The god of prophecy was born, but Apollo was not only a warrior, he was also a symbol of beauty, art, and order. Lyre became his most loyal companion from the moment he took her from Hermes. He made the mountains tremble with his music, silenced the rivers, shook the hearts of even the gods. Music turned into a weapon with him. It was a power that conquered hearts, numbed minds, and illuminated souls. Music competitions were organized on Olympus. Apollo took on Pan on the flute and Marsyas on the lyre. Marsyas was brave but arrogant. When he claimed to be equal to the gods, Apollo punished him bitterly. Marsyas, who lost the race, was punished by being tied to a tree and skinned alive. With this cruelty, the harshness behind the beauty of the god was revealed. Apollo was a figure who judged as much as he was merciful, who punished as much as he healed with his music. However, Apollo's heart was often helpless in the face of love. Even though he was the god of beauty, love rarely responded to him. Perhaps one of the most touching stories of Apollo was his love for Daphne. One day, Eros threw a gold-tipped love arrow at the god when Apollo belittled him. At the same time, he shot a lead-tipped arrow of hate at Daphne. The result was the saddest run in the history of the gods. Apollo fell in love with Daphne at first sight, but Daphne didn't even want to look at him. The closer he got, the further away she got. And finally, she desperately begged the earth, "Save me!" Mother Earth's response was swift. Daphne's feet took root, her arms turned into leaves, and a laurel tree rose from between Apollo's hands. Love was imprisoned in a tree, and Apollo lost his beloved forever. But the god turned this loss into a sacred symbol. From that day on, the laurel tree became Apollo's sacred plant. Crowns of victory were made of laurel. Artists and heroes were presented with his memory. Another tragic love of Apollo was Hyacinthus. This young man was the god's lover and friend. One day while they were throwing a discus together, the discus thrown by Apollo hit Hyacinthus' head with the play of the wind. The young man died in the arms of the god. Apollo's tears mingled with the blood, and from this tragedy, purple flowers were born from the soil. Hyacinth. This flower, which blooms every spring, continued to exist as a sign of the god's sorrow. These events showed that the god was not only a warrior or a master of prophecy, but also an emotional, fragile being. Apollo was a god born in darkness but burdened by light. The brightest light sometimes casts the greatest shadows.